It's definitely very tense.
Extremely contentious.
Half an hour outside the city that never sleeps. A New York primary keeping Democrats up at night.
Yeah. He's nowhere to be
Mr. Latimer,
found.
go ahead.
Get out of here, man. You're nowhere to be found.
Congressman Jamaal Bowman's battle for a third term is now the most expensive and arguably most intense of the cycle.
Do you see why he's an ineffective congressman?
Why?
He argues. No, because he
argues. Do people in here understand passion?
Bowman is one of Congress's most vocal critics of the Israeli government. Is that the central issue in this race as you see it, though?
It is, because he was recruited by AIPAC to run against me because I called for a permanent ceasefire very early on.
The issue of Palestine and Israel is on the ballot here.
Longtime Westchester County Executive George Latimer saw it as one of several reasons to mount a challenge.
The fire alarm incident was inexplicable.
Bowman pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor for pulling a fire alarm in Congress during a controversial vote last year.
His response to October 7th was yet the next, type of thing.
He is attacking me as if somehow my position is outside of the mainstream. It's his position with some of the squad members that's outside the mainstream.
Record-breaking sums spent here on ads. Pro-Israel groups backed by AIPAC make up more than $14 million of it.
Jamaal Bowman has his own agenda, and he's hurting New York.
All in a diverse district with a significant Jewish population. Bowman's not the first progressive with pro-Palestinian views to face a primary.
It's not good enough to send bombs to Israel and send Band-Aids to Gaza.
Congresswoman Summer Lee won her Pennsylvania race earlier this year. This race highlighting and hardening Democratic divides. Locally with former Congressman Mondaire Jones.
George is the clear choice to represent New York's 16th congressional district.
Nationally, it's a 2016 redux. Hillary Clinton's endorsed Latimer. Bernie on the stump for Bowman.
I don't know how much of a heavy hitter Hillary Clinton is, with all due respect.
Bowman boasts the backing of his party's top congressional leaders and prominent progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Still, it's wars abroad that could have the most impact here at home.
If you win.
When?
If you win,
Yeah,
you say that. What does it say to the Democratic Party writ large?
I think it just means that the people can beat the money every time. The many can beat the money every time.
And Ali Vitali joins me now. Ali, that was a great package breaking down all the issues. So Latimer got his first endorsement from a sitting member of Congress today, just one day before the primary. Does that give him any more momentum going into Tuesday?
Well, look, it is a moment where we're watching one of Bowman's own colleagues now come out for the guy who is challenging him. And we've seen this week to week, Yamiche, as I've done these pieces about House primaries where incumbents are facing tough challengers. But in this one, there is so much vitriol and just so much bitterness. You hear it in the tone of the way that voters talk about this race. You hear it the way that other members of this community have talked about this race. It has really devolved into a race where Bowman's team is alleging racism from Latimer's team. Latimer's team is saying it's all foul play and unfair. It's really a moment where you see the breaking points and the schisms within the Democratic Party writ large. So sure, the fact that a colleague of Bowman's is now playing in this race is certainly one more thing to add to the pile. But I have to tell you, this is one of those stories, Yamiche, that especially once I got on the ground, it was like there wasn't enough time to add all of the different dynamics that are at play here in this race and in this battle that is, yes, about Bowman versus Latimer. It's through the lens of the Israel-Gaza conflict, but then it's also a larger story about the Democratic Party and the schisms between progressives and more mainstream candidates that we've been seeing since 2016. The fact that Hillary and Bernie are both playing here is just emblematic of the divides that we're still watching play out now in the year 2024.
Yeah, well, you talk about bitterness. There's also some bitterness on the GOP side. You were in Virginia covering the Bob Good primary. So what's the latest with that race?
This is a race that was going to be fascinating, and that's why we started spotlighting it. And now that we're seeing it's a difference of 372 votes days after, a week after this race, and it still has not been called, it is absolutely fascinating to watch the dynamics on the Republican side of this. But today we watched Congressman Bob Good make one of his first moves in a week. We knew that he was waiting to see how these results would play out. Now Good is saying on Steve Bannon's radio show that he is going to block certification of the results in this race. He says that there was foul play with ballot box in a specific area of the state around Lynchburg. We've reached out to those election officials and the Good campaign. We have not yet heard back. But look, this is what happens when you've got two election deniers going against each other. We've seen the way that they reacted to the 2020 election, where their favored candidate Donald Trump lost. In McGuire's case, he went to stop the steel rallies and was on Capitol Hill on January 6th. In Bob Good's case, he was in Congress and voting against certification of the election results. Now we're seeing what happens when one election denier loses and the other election denier wins. Turns out one of them is going to deny the results of the election and try to block certification, it turns out.
Yeah, well, Allie, you are putting in the work. New York, Virginia, thank you so much for all of it.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.